We're back with Stars in Cars with one of the biggest stars of them all. Workmate, former champion, Melbourne footballer, and musical aficionado, David Schwarz. How are you, Ox?
Good, Finey. Great to be. Good. Hello, Rohan.
Hello, Ox.
Great to be here.
We don't see enough of you, you know.
No, we don't. Well, we cross over now a little bit, but doing mornings has changed my social life for this thing, actually.
What time do you have to get up?
20 to 4.
Oh, good start.
20 to 4?
20 to 4. Well, it's 22. It was 22 minutes to 4. It's now 18 minutes to 4. I've been able to creep 4 minutes in just through routine and cutting corners.
What time do you go to bed?
Between 8:30 and 9:30. Normally the kids tuck me in about 8:30. And then, there we go. Melbourne traffic, that's okay. So the kids tuck me in and then I go to sleep, and I'm normally asleep by about 9:30. It's not too bad.
So we're here to talk about your football life, which is vast and eventful and controversial. But we'll start at the start.
Hang on, I reckon we need to start at the end because
Start at the end.
Well, Ox's musical selection is...
Oh, we're doing that up front, are we?
We're going to do it up front. It's extraordinary, but David claims that it's such a wonderful song and so important to his being that he performs best after hearing it. Is that true, Ox?
DNA. It is in my DNA.
Well, hang on, before you play it...
Well, I'm not allowed to touch it. Remember, I got in big trouble when I was... I'm going to pull over because we had some... Quite rightly, we had contributions from some of our viewers.
Constabulary friends.
Who suggested that I shouldn't have been mucking around with a
Mobile device
whilst driving. So here we go.
Pulled over.
Pulled over, turning the vehicle off.
We are in Swan Street. We might get a tap on the window in a minute.
And this should be pretty simple.
Okay. Here we go. Just get your ears around this. Oh, wow.
So now it's on and I can start the car up again. Oh my God.
That's the Bangles.
Of course it's the Bangles, Rohan.
Have you got a sick bag?
My eyes watering.
Yeah, they are.
Do you understand?
Do you feel the same? Am I only dreaming?
Is this burning?
Okay, so tell us, what's the story behind it, Ox?
What year do you reckon this was done, Rohan?
About 87, 8?
I think it was about 87.
Yeah.
It was my first real pash.
Your first pash?
My first real pash, Rohan.
How old were you? 7, 8?
I was a late starter, believe it or not, in Sunbury.
And who was the lucky girl?
Don't hate the lucky person.
No, it was a girl, I'll be honest with you there. No, just a Sunbury lass. She was, just great memories. in the back of a Ford Laser. I made Shane Betson's Ford Laser.
And long-term romance lasted, what, 3 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks the last thing she gave me the Tijuana.
So you were going around with that? Or what was it called? Going around? Or
I was
going with.
I was going with, yeah. And then she gave me the Tijuana and it was all done. She was an American girl. So, devastating. She had braces too. Light braces as a young bloke growing up.
Well, you get your teeth stuck in. Get your tongue stuck in.
Sorry.
I had a thing for braces.
I've had enough of it.
Yeah. I can
I'm
understand.
moved.
A lot of people don't like it, but
No.
It's sentimental for me.
They were good friends with the Hoodoo Gurus, the Bengals, so that gives them some credit, Michael.
Yeah, Hooters were good.
So can we talk about the footy
Let's
now?
talk about footy.
Okay. Sunbury boy. So how Sunbury and Melbourne Football Club don't seem a natural union.
No, it certainly wasn't. I grew up as a mad hawker, so for me to get to Melbourne only happened through what we're seeing now called zoning.
Yeah.
Which is coming back into vogue. So I was zoned to Melbourne, and at the age of 14 I got asked to go down and play in the under-19. So I debuted, I think I just turned 15, I was 15 in a week when I played my first under-19s game.
That's amazing.
And then played against the Bulldogs out at Whitten Oval. And then my second game played against the Bombers at the Junction Oval. And for the Bombers at that stage was Dean Lupson, who was also from Sunbury, and he terrorised me for the day. So, and at the age of 15, when you're 15 up against 19-year-olds, it was quite daunting, but I got my first votes in my second game and didn't look back.
So what year was that?
86.
Okay. So who, any other...
Sorry, 87 it was. 87.
Any other people in the Melbourne thirds that kicked onto anything?
Yeah. Well, so when I came through, there was Stephen Tingay, John Ahern, Lukey Beveridge. So no, there was some really good players. Paul Hopper, David Neitz, and all those players. So no, we had a good splattering of talent coming through when I came through. They actually recruited quite well. We're big from Tassie, so we had the Phoebe boys and so forth, and had a lot of kids, Chris, and also from Shepparton area. So we had the Rod Grinners, and well before us, Rod Grinners, Chris Farrell, Gary, Stinger, John Ahern. So we had a lot of people coming out of that area. So
your timing was very good too, because 87, of course, Melbourne made the finals for the first time in 23 years.
Yeah, it was, and being a Hawthorn supporter, living in Sunbury, I couldn't go to the Geelong Hawthorn game in that last year, where Dunstall kicked 3 goals in the last 3 minutes to get Hawthorn the win over Geelong, and Melbourne had to beat the Bulldogs. So I went down to the Melbourne Bulldogs game because of that affiliation, and got to see an unbelievable range of emotions, from Melbourne winning and then having to wait, and then sitting on the train going back to Spencer Street to hear that Dunstall had just kicked the goal and Hawthorn had won, which put Melbourne into the finals. It was bloody amazing, and that was when Gary Lyon broke his leg, and a lot of history back at that time.
I've never seen that footage.
No, you got to have a look at it. It's pretty dramatic.
And that was Tulip. That was Robbie Flowers.
That was his last year.
Great chance to play finals football at the end of that career.
And it was funny because 2 years later he was then my skills coach.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with a bloke like Robbie Flower, you're dealing with an individual that was just so good yet so humble. And I have no doubt that the 2 years that he spent on me and my skill development, I went from a pretty average sort of kick, and my marking was always okay, but my hands and my kicking went to levels that I never thought possible on the back of what Robbie was being able to show me. So
Give us an example. Like, what are some of the sort of practical tips you passed on?
So basically, his philosophy was the more you touch it, the more you're familiar with the way the ball lands and bounces and so forth. So he said, just have a ball in your hand no matter what. So if you're at training and there's only 4 footies, when you go to a break, make sure you have the ball in your hands. Just be touching it and feeling it more than anyone else.
Yeah.
He said, with your kicking, experiment with what the ball can do. So don't just kick drop punts and don't just kick draw torpedoes, but kick drop kicks, kick inside out torpedoes, kick inside out bananas, kick all the different types of kicks, because sometimes you'll develop a feeling on your foot that you wouldn't normally get by just being methodical and doing the same things. And he said, you've just got to be repetitive. You've got to don't just think that 100 kicks is going to do it. It's 100 kicks a day. It's 1,000 kicks a day. Just keep on using and keep on experimenting and push yourself. So we'd start off and be kicking 3 metres apart, just barreling it in. In the end, we'd be kicking it that hard, your leg would be almost dropping off, just to test how good your hands would be. But by testing your hands, you're also testing your legs. So yeah, my skill improved dramatically on the back of Robbie Flower.
Just out of interest, how do you deliberately kick an inside-out torpedo?
Exactly right. So they're not hard to do once you learn it. So you hold it like a left foot torpy and kick it off the instep. So you kick it off almost off your ankle.
Yeah.
They're very, very. Once you learn them, they're easy. And also kicking drop punts to curve right and to curve left, and that's all about ball drop. So David Neitz always had a kick that cut across, which means he'd kick them inside to out, so left to right for a right footer. So we learnt that. Adam Uze was unbelievable at doing that. Adam Uze was the master of being able to manipulate the ball. I remember when he started, I remember showing him what Robbie Flower had taught me, and he goes, gee, I'd never thought of it like that. His came more naturally. So yeah, it's just experimenting and learning things, and I think the Indigenous boys do it as well as anybody.
I want to fast forward. You make your debut, you're a senior player for Melbourne, and I want to go right to the point in time where I believe you're the best player in the competition. Melbourne are in the finals. You'll know the year, Rohan, but it's against Carlton.
94. Qualifying final. 2nd v 7th.
And it is, I remember I'm driving back from Adelaide, and without much of a fondness for Carlton, I've become the greatest Melbourne supporter of all time. And I reckon I think
we were all Melbourne that day, Finey.
Yeah, and I reckon I was coming just the other side of Ballarat, and I had to stop the car. I was fisting the air, and they just could not. they could not put into words what you were doing to Carlton. I mean, sports people talk about being in a perfect place in the zone, just where they know a golfer that it doesn't matter what's happening around them, they know that this is the time. Was that your time?
Yeah, it was. There's a bit going on in my head at that time too, because I thought I was going to be arrested the morning of. I had debt collectors on my door. I owed a heap of money, and so obviously I'd been targeted on a big day, and so I wrote them out a cheque and got rid of them. I had no money in the account, so I knew that it was going to bounce. So I kind of got to the game and I was a little bit frazzled. But getting into the game, it was just a perfect day for footy. The weather was, pretty much what it is today, just beautiful. It was probably 18 degrees. And Carlton didn't have a lot of quality big backmen that were able to go one-on-one. They were a really good defensive unit, but they had Sexton and Peter Dean, who were always a bit undersized. So Sexton wasn't as agile and Peter Dean wasn't as tall and couldn't leap as much. So I always found Carlton a good side to play against, and it just happened. Things started to roll, and we knew that we had a very good side. We'd won a heap of games to get there. I think we hadn't lost too many towards the end of the season, and had a pretty potent forward line. And if we got it in there enough, we'd be able to kick the score. But Carlton, playing against their fans was all. Them and Richmond were the two that you just knew that, when you walked in the game, it was you versus the fans, and it was bloody awesome. I loved playing against Carlton, and that final in particular. I remember Barmy. We walked in the rooms afterwards, and Barmy just said, "That's the way footy's got to be played." And we desperately thought that we would just about win the flag that year.
Well, it was tough. You fixed up the Bulldogs the next week. Gary Lyon kicked 10, I think.
Yeah, in 3 quarters, yep.
You're a bit stiff. You had to go to Perth for a preliminary final, and the Eagles that year were pretty good. Clearly the best team in the comp.
Yeah, they were. I roomed with Jimmy Steins that night, and the night of the game, and I'd seen nerves in Jimmy, but he looked pretty nervous. He was meditating at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, oh, gee. But yeah, they were a great side. They had a lot of depth. They had a lot of strength. They were a lot bigger than us. They were really big. I remember Glenn Jakovic.
Curiously big.
Yeah, I was going to bring that
up.
Well,
Glenn Jakovic was always big, and his brother was huge. But I remember I played on Glenn a few times, and he went from my size to double my size. I thought, shit, I've got to get on his weights program because he is strong, and he was a great footballer. So no, I respected what they did. They were certainly a very good team.
Speaking of stars in cars, Alan Jakovic,
the best
character.
He's the best footballer I ever saw pound for pound at the Melbourne Footy Club.
Better than Paul Primke.
Just.
You love Paul Primke, didn't you?
Paul Primke was a great player. We didn't see the best of him. He had a bad back problem. Alan Jakovic was the most mature. He kicked 126 goals in his first year at Melbourne in 1991. He kicked 50 and 76. 76 in the twos, 50 in the one. He was just the most enigmatic bloke you've ever come across. He was just, unfortunately for Alan, Glenn got the brains, and Alan got triple the talent that Glenn got. But Glenn was able to get triple the quality out of his body than what Glenn.
So he wasn't an eternal flame.
No, he wasn't.
But he did take a car for a test drive once.
Yeah, he did. This car, almost his same car. So it was a Statesman. Organised it through Penfolds, and he went, and then about 4 days later I got a phone call from Penfolds. Have you seen Alan? I said, oh, not really. And he said, oh, he hasn't brought the car back. And I'm thinking, oh no. Anyway, he brings the car back, throws the keys, and the car's missing a wheel. It's got a spare tyre on, and the aerial's missing, and a cracked window. He'd done just under 13,000 Ks. He'd driven from Melbourne to Perth to Port Augusta and back. And threw the keys to the bloke, and he said, "No, I'm not happy with it. You can have it back." and never bought it. And that was Alan Jakovic.
Now, good stories. We have to sort of cut to the unhappy part though, which is the knee problems, which we're talking about the '94 final series. They started not long after, really.
Yeah, '95. So I played the West Coast prelim, and then never played footy in the same vein again. The body didn't hold up. So I had an unfortunate accident in training, and then 14 weeks later I did it again against Sydney at the G, and then 10 months after that I did it again at Leamington up in Albury-Wodonga, and 23 knee operations later I finally got the knee right through a change of surgery, and yeah, it was just one of those things that that you look back at and go, yeah, well, what if? But
What couldn't you do that you were able to do?
I didn't have the agility, and I couldn't sit on blokes' heads. I played a lot of basketball as a kid, so I was able to dunk the ball at the age of 14. My leap and my agility was the thing that actually I found was my biggest asset. That, you know, a bloke like Peter Dean or Sexton were probably good examples that it didn't matter how defensive they were, I knew that I could beat them just through, as soon as the ball hit the ground or as soon as the ball was kicked up high, they didn't have a chance. And going to that 94 final series, I remember vividly thinking, there's not a bloke there that can stop me. Yeah. There's not a bloke in the final series. Even Glenn Jakovic that year. I think that year we shared votes. I got 3 against him, and he got 2 or 3 on 1, and then 1 and 3, or something like that. Where we both. I just knew that I had most of the centre half backs covered, just through my athleticism. And then in '95 and 6 and 7 and 8 and beyond, I became more of a bullocking power forward, where you had to sacrifice your game to give to your teammates, which I loved, but I hated the fact that I couldn't turn it on and be nearly explosive. I didn't have, my body had changed. I'd gone from 103 kilos to 120, so I certainly bulked up.
I'll ask you, Rohan. I mean, at the end of '94, David Schwarz was the best footballer in the competition. I felt. Wayne Carey, there was a good discussion. Wayne Carey or Schwarz.
You want my opinion?
Yep.
I'd probably take the Duck, with all due respect to Ox. But
at the end of '94.
Yeah, look, Duck had a pretty amazing final series in '94. He, in fact, you'd remember this, Ox. I mean, Carey in the drawn final against Hawthorn took something like 14 marks, 16 marks, won him the game. The preliminary final against Geelong, and he was playing injured. He kicked 6 goals and I think took 14 marks again, had 20 odd disposals. That Carey was almost at his absolute peak very early in his career.
It was. The 2 blokes were. I mean, it was a good discussion. It was a question to be had.
Two great power forwards.
The thing that Barmy used to always say, you know, what's your strength? And it was my marking. And he said, well, you take more marks than anyone, and we're well on our way. And in '94 I did, which was, you know, that was one of our goals that we set out at the start of the year to do, to take more marks than anyone else, and we were able to do that. And that was what, you know, you set yourself goals at the start of the year. You don't expect to, you know, you don't expect to smash them, but, you know, to do that, and Duck did have a great year that year. It was not justification, but it was certainly, I was more than honoured to be spoken about in those terms. But it never got to me. It was never about being the best in the competition. It was all about team, and I just wanted to make sure that what I was doing for our side was what Barmy wanted, because I would have jumped on a bomb for Barmy. So that's the sort of bloke he was.
So let's work it out. Your knee, Gary's back. Probably
Alan's back. Yeah. Alan Jakovic's back.
And Gary's as well.
Yeah. Oh, Gary's was really bad, and then
Jeff Farmer's temperament.
Yeah, well, even worse, Martin Pike's temperament. Stephen Tingay, who did his hamstring through a glass window.
Yeah.
We had Glenn.
Nita got his head smashed.
Yeah, Glenn Lovett also. Nita had 3 broken bones that year. Yep. Glenn Lovett had chronic back and hamstrings. Brett Lovett had broken down. The first time Glenn Lovett had ever broken down. Jimmy Steins had broken ribs. So, and I know he didn't miss footy, but he basically missed 6 weeks because he was rendered useless because of the ribs, but he still got out there and played. It was just a shocking end of '94, and then '95. It just, you know, Gary and I hurt ourselves on the same practice game. You know,
what might have been?
It could have been, but
that's the thing, isn't it? I was going to say. I mean,
that's what makes life great.
Well, you can ponder the what ifs, but you did soldier on for another 6-7 years. I played in a grand final.
Yeah, played another 100. So I did that at 63. So I played another 110 games after my last injury. So no, I'm really proud of it. I'm proud of my time at the Melbourne Footy Club. I'm proud that I was able to stay a 1 club player and win a BNF. But footy affords you a lot of benefits, but it also brings a lot of responsibilities. And, you know, through my gambling issues, I've been able to hopefully give back in areas that I thought I'd never been involved with when I left the game. So it's a position for very few privileged, and I don't take it for one moment any any I don't feel, I don't take it for granted. I love it, and I cherish the position that I'm in every day. It's a very rewarding career that I've had.
So one last one. I mean, and I've known you for a decade. I just think you're a cracking bloke. If the mature David Schwarz that's sitting here could have a word to that 15-year-old that was invited down to the Melbourne Football Club and was about to play his first under-19 game against the Bulldogs, if he could say something to him, if he could give him a message from the future, what would that message be?
Don't hang around with dickheads.
What are you doing with us?
Well, there are exceptions.
No, but
not of course. No, absolutely. You are a product of who you hang out with. So I hung out. Well, out of all the people I've hung out with, the Sunbury boys were the most consistent. They were actually great guys who kept you grounded. I never got into trouble with them. They were absolutely decent blokes. Yeah. It was when I allowed people into my life that I thought were friends. The hanger-oners. Yeah. They're the ones that I feel affected me and probably manipulated how I was thinking and how I was feeling. And Mum was all over it. Mum was too clever. She just said, "They'll be the death of you. You got to be very careful. You hang around dogs, you catch fleas." It was her famous saying. And I remember she said to me one day, she said, "You're infected. You got fleas all over you. Get away from them." And we finally did. And if I can give anyone any advice, you are a product of the people that you hang out with. You hang around good people, you make good decisions. You hang around dingbats, you'll make really ordinary decisions.
Yeah, good call.
Well, fortunately for us, we hang around with you a bit.
So we've come to the end of the drive.
Oh, it was a beautiful drive around the MCG. That was my home ground. Yeah. How many people get to say that their home ground to play footy on was the mighty MCG?
Not just home ground, but you made it your own. I mean, there were times there where the MCG and David Schwarz were an unconquerable combination. So good were you, Dave, that I'm willing to do something that I can't believe that I'm going to do.
Oh, no, again.
We're finishing on the eternal flame.
Mark,
Go on, give us a few bars.
I'm going to cry.
Come on, give us a few bars.
Close your eyes, give me your hand.
If I had a cigarette lighter in my pocket, I'd light it.
She did this nude. If that's not inspiration, Susanna Hoff. If that's not inspiration, Mark, I don't know what is.
In the recording studio? Okay, so we're picturing Susanna Hoff's.
Oh, I'm picturing that all the time. Is this burning an eternal flame?
I don't know if it's burning an eternal flame, but it burnt my thumb. Thanks, Oxy.
Thanks, mate.
Love you,
Cheers,
mate.
Ox.
Thanks, Ro-Co.
Great stuff.